Nariz, né?
In my community, the people actually, they were scared. Every time you switch on the TV, you see those stats. It tells you that you're gonna die. And I have small kids, so when I looked at my kids, I said, I'm gonna fight. I'm not gonna die. That gave me hope looking at my kids.
Scientists, we are the explorers of today. Our work is like a journey into the unknown. And what we discover has the potential to change the world and save human lives.
A virus is a very basic unit. Some proteins, nucleic acids, some DNA or RNA that's able to get into another organism, hijack their machinery, and make more copies of itself. Humans have existed with viruses forever, and we're really swimming in a sea of virus. They're really a threat when they become pathogenic, when they cause disease. Viruses don't recognize borders. They don't need passports. They're constantly moving. Everywhere we go, they go. And never mind that, everywhere animals go, everywhere insects go, they go. If we respond in a very human way with our barriers and our structures to something that does not respect that, it's not going to have a positive outcome. We're all painfully aware coming off a devastating pandemic, the consequences that it can have. The world got a wake-up call. We think that we can control everything. And my concern is that we'll fall back into our comfort zone. We will forget that these threats are there and that if we're not proactive, we will relive history. The Abbott Pandemic Defense Coalition is unique and is new, and we're trying to do things differently. The intent is that if we find something new, we do the heavy lifting to understand if that's really a threat. We're building tools that we can quickly put in the hands of public health experts so that they can ring-fence an outbreak and respond if needed.
I'm a virus hunter from a different perspective. I don't actually track the virus, but I track the footprints of the virus.
As we begin to survey in this area, we can see where are the intersections between the patient populations we have at Rush and then within the...
We have worked with Abbott in developing diagnostics not only in HIV, but in hepatitis, in HTLV1, in SARS-CoV-2. So then we were in a perfect position to now move forward and then move what we do here into the rest of the United States and other parts of the globe.
Hola River, ¿cómo estás?
¿Qué más, doctor? Bien.
¿Cómo te has sentido?
Siempre con malestar, dolor de cabeza, fiebre, con dolor
de cuerpo, articulaciones, fiebre.
Y escalofríos. Me tiene mal el cuerpo, me da malestar y me ataca por horas en la noche y me tiene así.
Bueno, entonces te voy a tomar una muestrecita de sangre y vamos a analizarla con unas pruebas rápidas para saber si tienes malaria. ¿Listo?
Bueno, Daniel.
Well, I think factors that exacerbate the spread of infectious disease are human activity. We're encroaching more and more into habitats where we haven't been before, becoming in contact with animals on a more regular basis. Climate is changing, so the range where animals can live has changed, where vectors like mosquitoes and ticks can live and thrive has changed. And it's moving them more in collision course with the human population.
Hola, ¿cómo está? Colombia has all the conditions for a pathogen to spread and to occur. We have large biodiversity. We have indigenous populations. We have the Amazon River behind us. And we have 3 countries, what we call the Triple Frontera. We have Colombia, Brazil, and Peru. There is folks crossing the border. There is a lot of activity happening. And the Abbott Pandemic Defense Coalition really wants to study these pathogens at the local location before they become a major problem. That's why we are here in Colombia. Carlos, muy bien. Esa va para allá atrás, ¿sí? Por favor. Allá vaya atrás, por favor, ¿sí? Bueno, estén tranquilo, venga que yo lo apoyo. ¿Estamos listos? ¿Listo?
Enciéndalo.
No, pero con ustedes aquí.
Ya, ahí, espere. Se me fue.
Ahora sí, no, ya. Listo.
Despacio, sí.
Vamos. This is the Amazon River. We have here the second largest river in the entire world, with about 7 million square kilometers of river basin, and the life of 34 million people depends on activities around the Amazon River. As you can see, there is commerce, there is gas stations, grocery stores, houses, all in the river. But also, it's a major highway for the transmission of infectious diseases. ¿Por ahí o por allí?
Por aquí.
Yo quiero más ver allí.
Aquí. ¿Cómo les fue?
Bien, ¿tú qué tal?
Bien.
Bueno,
¿Están?
recibo.
Buenas, ¿cómo están?
Muchachos, me acaban de informar que ha habido un número de casos altos de fiebre en Leticia. Y a este momento no sabemos qué es. Puede ser malaria, puede ser chikungunya, puede ser dengue, o puede ser una cosa que no sabemos qué es y una cosa nueva. También quiero entonces que miremos si de pronto esto está siendo transmitido por mosquitos. Entonces vamos a trabajar muy coordinadamente todos y vamos a hablar con el laboratorio de Abbott en Chicago para que nos ayuden a coordinar toda esta evaluación. ¿Muy bien? Entonces, vamos a ir a lo más lindas, ¿no?
Sí, este barrio es lo más lindas, entonces vamos a buscar el mejor lugar donde podamos capturar mosquitos.
Bueno, ahora sí a trabajar, muchachos. Sí, no, ustedes no han trabajado, claro, usted no lo ha ganado. Around these houses, the owners are saying there is a lot of bites from mosquitoes and they had some fever like dengue-like. So what we're going to do is our team is setting up some mosquito traps. They're going to hang them up outside.
Perfecto, señor.
Places like this where there is a very close contact between humans and nature, there is a great chance for emerging infectious diseases to occur and major outbreaks to happen.
Entonces, en este caso, esta trampa lo que utiliza es el olor para atraer a los insectos o mosquitos que vengan a picarnos.
Ojalá mañana tengamos lo suficientes para poder hacer un buen análisis.
Very good, very exciting.
I want to myth bust the fact that people sometimes think that rats are in lower income areas and things like that. That's not necessarily true. Rats are really great at being unbiased. They don't care where you live, what kind of car you drive. You can give them shelter and food, they're going to stay around. We have one of our old traps here. Do you want me to open that one up?
Chicago was just named as the rattiest city in America. What we're now doing is actually capturing rats throughout the city of Chicago, trying to determine whether or not we're seeing the spread of a pathogen.
That's it. So rats typically can carry, people always think about the plague. Hantavirus is a big one, so that's one that typically affects your kidneys or your respiratory. So currently we did a study where we were able to trap about 150 rats in these alleys here in Chicago. And we have about 4 different neighborhoods that we're doing them in, all across income gradients in Chicago. From the traps that we have and the rats that we trap in the alleys here, we'll take them to another location where we'll do some tissue analysis. And we'll take those tissue samples to Rush University being one of them, and a couple other places to run further analysis to look for things like COVID, RSV, and monkeypox.
So if we identify a novel pathogen or an emerging pathogen here in Chicago, we want to see, is there something similar in India? Is there something similar in Africa? And then work with Abbott to get a diagnostic test out into the field.
Mommy's boy. We're out here just to check the transmission of COVID, and that is why I'm here in my dress code. Yeah, ek wil net loop hier nie, stamp uit die pad uit.
Hello, sorry.
Sorry.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
I'm Alice. How are you guys? Yeah, what brings us out here is the spread of COVID. And what brings us by is because we want to know the rate and the status of the spread. So
A lot of emphasis goes on vaccine development, but the first line of defense, the first tool you put in the hands of a public health professional and a clinician is a diagnostic test. Abbott is uniquely positioned to build high-quality diagnostic tests that can be distributed to our partners and investigators around the world to understand the nature of what's been discovered.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
For epidemics and pandemics, speed, it's essential.
Okay, guys, so I was just informed by our bioinformatic team that we have viruses that add a lot of mutations and also a deletion in the beginning of the genome, which potentially can be a new variant. And we're going to try to sequence that very quick. Just go straight to Dr. Maponga. He's separating around 150 samples to us. If you can bring the samples here, and then we're going to start the process.
The genomics facilities I direct in South Africa, they have been working with Abbott for the past decade. We normally can produce hundreds, if not thousands, of genomes and analyze that in hours or days.
You need to prepare 100 samples.
And that's very, very crucial, not only to identify variants, but within days we can evaluate diagnostics to see if they are effective. And we do also the same with the vaccines. That was really, really important to guide not only South Africa, but the world on the need of boosting before a wave of infection comes. You end up saving thousands, if not millions of lives. And that's what's happening in South Africa.
And then if you can put the other ones.
Yes.
Our last 2 waves of infections of Omicron was translated into very few hospitalizations and deaths because we could prepare the hospitals, but we also have accurate information on the effectiveness of diagnostics and vaccines.
How did you find it?
It is irritating, but at the end, you must know about your body, what is happening to your health. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, good of my baby.
Why can't men be like that?
Yeah.
It was nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting you.
See you then. And come to the testing.
Yeah, I will.
All right. Bye-bye.
We use wastewater as a proxy for what's happening in a community, what viruses are circulating, what viruses we know about, and what viruses we maybe don't know about. And we take these samples without targeting individuals, but knowing about what's happening in a whole community.
What are the safety concerns of working around a hole like this?
Making sure you don't fall in first. I mean, that's number one.
Looking externally at sources like wastewater or maybe animal samples gives us an early indicator of threats that may be in the human population that we're just not aware of, that is not showing up in the clinic yet. And then if you're seeing it in the wastewater, you can actually look more closely in the clinic with specific tests to try and identify it.
Say we find a new variant, we can know characteristics of that variant that maybe make it resistant to any of the therapeutics that are currently being used. And so we can alert the public health department, who can alert clinicians and say, maybe we can't use this monoclonal treatment anymore, or maybe we can't use this antiviral anymore because it's not effective on this particular variant.
You know, some days are a little more pungent than others, but yeah, there's definitely an aroma. Yeah, It's a nice way to put it.
Smells like science.
Our lab will be receiving the specimens, and then we, together with the investigators, will decide, what's the right workflow to process the samples to get the data that we need. That's extremely important to the overall pandemic preparedness, because we know about some pathogens, but we don't know about all of them.
Govind is someone who moved to New Delhi looking for work. You tend to come to places where other people who move to Delhi looking for work live, and then you see someone else injecting drugs. And the problem with opioids, especially heroin and other drugs that are very common in New Delhi and in many parts of India, is once you get hooked to it, it's very hard to get you off. When we were doing some work with people who inject drugs across India, what we noticed was HIV incidence among people who inject drugs in New Delhi was extremely high, like way higher than what I've seen anywhere in the world currently. And so I wanted to try and understand what was driving that transmission in New Delhi. What we found was one particular venue in New Delhi, venue number 40, which is right down the river a little bit, accounted for 71% of new infections in the entire state of Delhi. And what was also striking was in that one hotspot, your HIV prevalence was somewhere about 50-55%. Hepatitis C prevalence was about 65-70%. It was extremely high, and that's what was driving transmission. It was a godsend to have Gavin and the Abbott's Pandemic Defense Coalition come in and be like, this is a huge problem. There are similar outbreaks happening in the US, and we still don't know how to address these outbreaks when they happen.
बताया कि मेरा वही काम है फील्ड में जाना बात करना तो ऐसे ही फील्ड में गए थे वहाँ पर गोविंद मिला
मैं सेंटर से आई हूँ चांदनी चौक सेंटर से तुम वहाँ कभी गए हो
वहाँ कभी नहीं गई
कभी नहीं गए हो अच्छा टेस्ट वगैरह करवाया तुमने कभी
टेस्ट
HIV का
क्योंकि हमें ये पता लगाना बहुत ज़रूरी है कि भाई तुम्हारे बॉडी में किसी का कोई वायरस तो नहीं आ गया किसी के थ्रू कभी तुमने शेयरिंग भी की होगी उसने बोला हाँ की है क्या बार की है हमने कहा तो फिर आप रिक्स में हो
ठीक है
तो कितने बजे तक आना है
आ जाओ सुबह 9 बजे तक आ जाओ ठीक है ठीक
थैंक यू मैडम
So what we're doing with the Abbott Pandemic Defense Coalition is turning that blue shed from just being an abandoned house into something that is going to be a one-stop shop with all point-of-care diagnostics. We screen you for multiple infections. We provide you with a treatment and we send you out. But we also have counselors who talk to you. We're going to hook you up with referrals to like homeless shelters. If we can provide you with nutrition, provide that. We're also building like showers. We're building like restrooms because these are like people's essential needs.
Rapid testing is incredibly powerful in these circumstances where you have to get an answer quickly. So if you've got a population of people who are injecting drugs or other high-risk behaviors, they may not be back tomorrow. So you can't wait hours and days and weeks to get a result back to them. That information needs to be actionable now. So if you can tell them when you're in front of them that they have an infection and here's how you got it and here's how you can transmit it, then they can take that information and make the right decisions and break the chain. Looking at the genetic diversity of these viruses in India, that led us to the discovery that where you inject is as important as who you inject with. So just being in this geography, being in this location, significantly increase the risk of acquiring an infectious disease. And then if we can show that there, that is the springboard to doing that over and over again in other places. That's identify how infections are being transmitted. So it really is going after a very global problem at a very specific local level.
Vamos a ver cómo nos fue con esta trampa.
Mucho cuidado que está resbaloso, ¿cierto? Okay. No me vaya a caer que después me lo cobran, ¿cierto? ¿Ah? Creo que llovió anoche, ¿no es cierto?
Sí.
Carl, ¿cómo nos fue? Bien.
Muy bien, sí.
Sí, bueno, vamos a mirar qué tenemos aquí, ¿cierto? Ah, siempre hay bastantes, ¿sí?
Siempre, sí.
Ah, no, hay bastantes cosas. Bueno, entonces, Carl, vamos a prepararnos para llevarnos para el laboratorio. Y después nos lo llevamos para Medellín y allá vamos a ver qué tienen, ¿sí? Vamos a hablar con el equipo de Abbott también. ¿Muy bien?
Listo.
Que algunos de estos casos eran los que estábamos viendo en Leticia.
Y esos son los casos que tenemos grupo etario y tenemos identificación.
Hola muchachos, ¿cómo estamos?
¿Cómo estás? Muy bien, sí, señor.
Bueno, les tengo unas noticias muy importantes que les quiero compartir. De Abbott nos han informado que en las muestras que les mandamos hay secuencias de Oropouche. Sí, es un virus que realmente no sabíamos que lo teníamos en nuestro medio. Y luego averiguando... So Oropouche is an arbovirus that causes an acute febrile illness. People develop a rash in their bodies similar to dengue. You know, it's a body rash. But also they get headaches and they get joint pain. The fever can run for 3 to 5 days. Some of them might have to be hospitalized. It's a significant problem in the community and in the individuals.
Estos mosquitos son culicoides y están ampliamente distribuidos en todo el mundo.
Sí, entonces es un problema muy importante.
What was actually staggering about our research on Oropouche in Colombia was the amount we found.
When we studied the sequence of the virus that we found in Colombia, it looked like it came from neighboring countries, from Ecuador and near Ecuador in Peru, which is basically a sylvatic area where many of these viruses circulate. So we are building this picture of how the viruses are moving around, where they're coming from different locations. Hay casos en Perú, en Brasil y Venezuela. Es un problema bastante grave.
Come.
Hi.
Hi, good day.
Good, thanks.
How are you, sir?
Good.
Can you come in? So we're doing testing in the local communities. Would you be okay if we did a test on you?
He's saying he's concerned now because now we've heard what you said about the virus.
Let me just reassure you, it's not painful. Are you okay with that?
Oh, yes, I agree. Thanks.
I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you so much.
The most important part is not the equipment and the technology, but it is how a team, a very expert team of different disciplines can work together and have a team that can bring samples to the lab, generate genomes, analyze that and communicate. And that's really the key.
Just 5 swabs in one nose, 5 in the other, and then it's all done. Painless procedure.
On my right, on my left?
On both nostrils.
Because you must just relax.
Just
Sorry,
relax
I'm noticing his nose. Just relax.
3, 4, 5. And we're done. You did so good.
Thank you. I was so scared. Thank you.
I could see.
You shouldn't believe the stories you heard. And you're clear. You're good to go. So thank you so much. So remember to mask up.
Yeah.
Okay,
always,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
अब यहाँ पर सारे टेस्ट हो गए, बीमारियों का पता लग गया।
इधर सारे हो गए
कि तुम 2 वायरस, HIV और हेपेटाइटिस। बस एक ताकत की दवाई की तरह डेली एक गोली खानी है जिंदगी भर, जिससे कि तुम्हारी ताकत बने। ताकत की गोली डेली खाते हैं ना। बस उसी तरीके से इसको खानी है। एक भी दिन अगर छोड़ा तो सोचो ताकत कम हो जाएगी। तो नहीं छोड़ना है। अगर कोई भी दिक्कत परेशानी है, दवाई खो गई है,
How do we prevent more go-ins from actually happening? If you're looking at communities, whether they are in India or in the US or in South America or South Africa, we always look at them with a lens of a disease. We need to stop doing that. We need to start looking at them as people. Treat them with respect, treat them with dignity, because that's the only way you're going to get them to start coming to clinics or utilizing services that are actually beneficial to them. And we've been fortunate to have great people like Deepa, and we have a lot of people who are formally injecting drugs who work with us. So having that rapport and that link with the community and that people lens, I think, is going to be very critical going forward. There are multiple existing pandemics like HIV, viral hepatitis, tuberculosis, which is killing millions of people each year. The biggest gap there is diagnostics.
We need to develop this diagnostic test first, but then also we need to work to implement the test at the commercial level and to be able to make sure that we actually can detect in many different locations.
So what we found here, we found all these 9 different genomes. Yeah. So here you have the kind of Omicron cluster in red. Here you have the Delta in blue. What it means, it is in the process of evolving, and try to create more variations. And that's why it's so important to have this kind of genomic surveillance up and going.
We have to look holistically at the world. There is no over there anymore. One organization, one country, one network can't do it all. There's no way to tackle public health challenges on the magnitude that we're talking about here alone. So really the work that we're doing here in Rush is amazing and it's powerful, but it's amplified by being part of a network and seeing the same work or similar work going on at 16, 17 other sites around the world.
Entonces yo creo que tenemos que trabajar con las autoridades nacionales porque no se nos puede salir de las manos. ¿Cierto?
It's a brave new world. No longer are we worried about lifespan for an individual, but it's their health span. Can somebody live to 90 and be healthy? All of the new technology is going to lead us there and allow us to understand things of the impact of infections, but also how well we live and how healthy we live in the future.
And really driving home the message to everybody around the world that we're all in public health.
If you know your status, it will save your life.
We need to practice, practice, practice. It's like the fire department. We have fire departments. How often do we have a fire? For the pandemics, we have to do the same thing. We have to practice, practice, practice.
तो अभी नशा कभी कर रहे हो? लगा रहे हो अभी?
नहीं, अब तो नहीं कर।
छोड़ दिया कभी भी?
तो जिससे कि मुझे अब अच्छा लगता है
खुश हो
कि हाँ मैं खुश हूँ अब।
पक्का?
पक्का।
It's hard not to think about health as like a basic necessity. It's a right. And I know I can't help everybody in the world, but I feel like there's a lot we can do with what we have. Like I'm sure you're all familiar with that starfish story where there's this old man walking down the beach and he sees a small boy picking up a starfish and throwing it back into the ocean. And the old man goes up to the child and says, there are thousands of starfish here, the tide is going to go back, all those starfish are going to die, you're never going to be able to throw them back into the ocean. But the child looks at the old man and says, well, it makes a difference to this starfish. Right, so that's sort of what we're trying to do here. Impact as many lives as we can through these different programs, because I believe that everybody has a right to good health. And the question is, how do we actually make that happen?